Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs begin with a question so simple that it almost feels impossible. What if the strongest enemy inside the body isn't actually strong at all? What if the cells we fear the most, the ones that grow uncontrollably, invade silently, and challenge modern medicine, carry within them a flaw so deep, so fundamental, that it could change the way we understand disease forever? That is the doorway into this keynote, a doorway that pulls you deeper into one of the most fascinating insights emerging from cellular science today. If you stay with me, you will see how this single discovery reshapes everything we thought we knew about how the body protects itself. Inside the human body, every cell fights for survival. Healthy cells follow order, structure, and balance. They grow when needed, rest when directed, and die gracefully when their time is over. Cancer cells, however, reject this discipline. They break away from the rules, choosing chaos over cooperation. Yet in that rebellion lies their greatest weakness. In trying to outrun every natural limit, they expose themselves to pressures that no organism, no matter how aggressive, can endure forever. This is why the idea that many cancer cells can be pushed into self-destruction is not fantasy. It is biology revealing its own strategy. Imagine a cell that grows too fast for its own good. It demands more energy than it can safely handle. It burns through nutrients in a frenzy, building and dividing without pause. Every moment of its existence is an emergency, a race, a desperate sprint. This is the reality inside a cancer cell. It is constantly teetering on the edge of collapse because its metabolism is unstable, reckless, and profoundly stressed. Unlike healthy cells that use steady, efficient energy systems, cancer cells rely on chaotic, inefficient processes that generate toxic byproducts. These byproducts accumulate, creating internal damage. They push the cell closer and closer to a threshold where its survival mechanisms fail. The beauty of the body is that it notices this instability. It senses when a cell has become too dangerous or too damaged to continue. Built within every cell is a self-destruct switch apoptosis, a biological fail, safe, designed to protect the greater good. The emerging insight is that cancer cells, because of their unstable metabolism, sit much closer to that switch than we ever realized. They are vulnerable, more fragile than their reputation suggests, and when certain metabolic pressures rise, they trigger their own collapse. This keynote centers on that vulnerability, the hidden weakness inside every rebellious cell. It shifts the narrative from fear to understanding, from helplessness to awareness. When we grasp how these cells function, we no longer see disease as an unstoppable force, but as a complex imbalance that can be influenced, pressured, and guided. The real transformation begins not when we fight harder, but when we finally learn where the enemy is already weak. Every powerful system in the body runs on one essential truth. Metabolism determines survival. Cells live, grow, repair, and communicate through the energy they produce. And when that energy system becomes disrupted, everything changes. What researchers have observed is both astonishing and deeply logical under certain pressures. Cancer cells can be driven into a state where their own energy crisis activates their built-in self-destruct mechanism. It is not the force of an external attack that makes them fall apart. It is the unbearable weight of their own metabolic chaos. And when you understand how this happens, you start to see the entire landscape of disease in a different light. To grasp this, imagine a car engine pushed far beyond its limits. The driver slams the accelerator, flooding the system with fuel, but the machine wasn't designed to run at that intensity for long. The engine overheats, Parts grind against each other, and sooner or later it collapses. Cancer cells behave much like that. They live in a state of constant overdrive, burning energy at speeds healthy cells would never attempt. They rely on unstable pathways because those pathways help them grow faster, but that speed comes at a cost they cannot afford forever. This is where metabolic stress becomes the key to their downfall. When cancer cells reach a point where they cannot regulate their energy production, they accumulate internal damage. Their mitochondria, often already compromised, struggle to keep up. The oxygen balance shifts. Their environment becomes acidic. Reactive molecules rise inside them like sparks in a dry forest. And then the critical tipping point is reached. The cell recognizes that it can no longer sustain itself. Once that line is crossed, a sequence begins, one that ends with the cell turning against itself. Healthy cells do not fall into this pattern because they have flexible, balanced metabolic systems. They slow down when necessary, switch pathways efficiently, and maintain chemical stability. Cancer cells cannot do this. Their survival depends on speed, excess, and imbalance. So when a metabolic challenge is introduced, whether through internal signaling, environmental conditions, or therapeutic strategies, they are the first to crumble. Their aggressive nature becomes their own destruction. This keynote emphasizes a truth that is reshaping the scientific world. You don't always need to overpower a dangerous cell. Sometimes you only need to push it gently toward the weakness it already carries. When cancer cells are denied the metabolic stability they crave, they fold. They trigger apoptosis as a last resort, not because something attacked them, but because their own malfunction becomes too great to contain. The beauty of this concept is that it aligns with what the body has been designed to do all along. It maintains equilibrium, restores balance, and removes what no longer belongs. The metabolic trick isn't magic. It is the body's natural intelligence responding to stress in a predictable and protective way. Understanding that process opens the door to a future where we work with biology, not against it, allowing internal systems to guide damaged cells toward the end they were already destined for. When you begin to explore the inner workings of a cell, the first thing you realize is that energy is everything. It is the heartbeat of life, the spark that fuels repair, growth, communication, and survival. For years, the focus of treatment has been on the structural aspects of cancerous DNA mutations, its uncontrollable division, its ability to evade the immune system. But more and more researchers are turning their attention towards something far more fundamental: the cell's energy pathways. And this shift is not just a scientific trend. It is a recognition that metabolism may hold the key to understanding why damaged cells behave the way they do. What makes this focus so compelling is that cancer cells do not produce energy like normal cells. Instead of relying on balanced, efficient pathways inside the mitochondria, they use rapid, inefficient methods that generate energy in bursts, unstable, chaotic, and unsustainable. This is not a choice they make. It is a condition forced upon them by their own aggressive nature. The faster they grow, the more energy they need. The more energy they need, the more unstable their metabolic processes become. And the more unstable those processes become, the closer they drift to collapse. It's a vicious cycle that reveals a deep vulnerability hidden behind the appearance of unstoppable growth. This is why the scientific community is now studying these energy pathways with a new intensity. Instead of trying to destroy the cell from the outside, researchers are asking, What if we adjust the environment within and around the cell to make its own instability work against it? This idea doesn't rely on force. It relies on understanding where the cell is already weak. Cancer cells live in a constant state of metabolic stress, and when that stress is increased, even slightly, they may enter a state where they simply cannot survive. This metabolic focus is not about starving the body or blocking essential nutrients. It is about appreciating how energy signals, chemical shifts, and internal communication guide the fate of every cell. When a cell senses that its energy production is too chaotic, too toxic, or too unstable, it activates self-protection mechanisms. For damaged cells, one of those mechanisms is apoptosis, the self-destruct program that prevents further harm to the body. Healthy cells are far more resilient. They can adapt, slow down, or switch pathways. Cancer cells lack that flexibility, which is exactly why energy-focused research is gaining momentum worldwide. This change in direction represents a new era in understanding disease. Instead of viewing cancer as a monstrous force, researchers are beginning to see it as a fragile system held together by desperation and imbalance. And when you study it through the lens of metabolism, the entire picture shifts. You understand that these cells are not invincible. They are constantly battling their own instability. By exploring their energy pathways, scientists are learning how to guide them toward collapse, not through brute strength, but through biological wisdom, precision, and respect for the body's natural processes. The future of cancer research is no longer just about attacking cells directly or targeting their DNA. It's about understanding the very foundation of life inside those cells, their metabolism. By studying how cancer cells produce, consume, and regulate energy, scientists are uncovering new ways to guide them towards self-destruction. This is not a story of magic or miracles. It's a story of biology following its own rules, revealing vulnerabilities that were hidden in plain sight for decades. The exciting part is that this approach could transform how treatments are designed, making them smarter, more precise, and far less harmful to healthy cells. What makes this approach so promising is the focus on instability. Cancer cells, unlike healthy cells, cannot maintain balance. They constantly race to meet energy demands, creating stress within their own systems. And just like a structure built on shaky ground, the more they grow, the more fragile they become. By understanding the pathways that govern their energy production, researchers can identify tipping points, specific moments when a cell's survival mechanisms fail, triggering the self-destruct process known as apoptosis. Instead of attacking the cell externally, this method nudges it toward the weakness it already possesses. One of the most fascinating aspects of this research is the variety of strategies being explored. Scientists are not relying on a single method, but are looking at multiple ways to influence metabolic pathways. Some interventions focus on adjusting nutrient availability to create subtle pressure. Others target the internal signals that control energy flow, forcing the cell to make unsustainable choices. The common theme across all of these approaches is precision. By understanding the biology of each cell, therapies can be tailored to exploit weaknesses that were previously invisible. This direction represents a fundamental shift in thinking. Traditionally, treatments like chemotherapy and radiation act like a hammer, attempting to destroy everything in their path. Energy-based approaches, however, act like a key opening doors that lead a cell to collapse on its own. The elegance lies in the fact that healthy cells are largely unaffected because they maintain balance and flexibility, while unstable cancer cells are much more sensitive to these interventions. It's a form of intelligent, guided treatment, one that leverages nature's own mechanisms rather than relying purely on brute force. By focusing on the cell's energy machinery, researchers are also bridging the gap between biology and lifestyle. Metabolism isn't isolated to the lab. It is influenced by nutrition, exercise, and environmental factors. Understanding these connections could allow the body's natural systems to assist in keeping cells healthy while gently guiding unstable cells towards self-destruction. It's a future where science and natural biology work hand in hand. The potential impact of this work is immense. It's a glimpse into a future where therapies are not just reactive, but predictive and preventive. By targeting the weaknesses inherent in a cell's energy pathways, researchers hope to develop interventions that are both effective and harmonious with the body's own intelligence. This is not just innovation. It's evolution in how we understand disease, survival, and the delicate balance of life itself. One of the most profound realizations emerging from recent research is that what we consume, how we move, and the environment we create within our bodies can directly influence the metabolism of every single cell. Metabolic health is no longer an abstract concept. It is the foundation upon which cells thrive or collapse. Cancer cells, in particular, are highly sensitive to changes in their environment because their energy systems are unstable. While healthy cells adapt, regulate, and recover, these malignant cells struggle to survive when even subtle stressors appear. Understanding this opens a powerful door. Lifestyle and nutrition are not just about general wellness. They can support the body in maintaining balance and potentially tipping unstable cells towards self-destruction. Imagine a cell under constant pressure, forced to consume more than it safely can, racing against time to fuel uncontrolled growth. Now imagine introducing factors that support metabolic stability for healthy cells while simultaneously creating minor challenges for unstable cells. These challenges do not need to be extreme. Slight adjustments in nutrient availability, periods of fasting, or controlled energy stress can create the conditions where a fragile cell triggers apoptosis. It's not about deprivation or extreme interventions. It's about understanding and gently guiding the internal environment so that cells follow the natural rules of biology. Nutrition, for instance, becomes more than just food. It becomes a tool to influence cellular behavior. Certain nutrients and compounds can support mitochondrial function, reduce oxidative stress, and maintain energy balance in healthy cells, making them resilient. At the same time, the aggressive, fast-growing cells are less able to cope with these controlled shifts. Similarly, lifestyle factors like regular movement, intermittent fasting, and stress management impact energy pathways throughout the body, creating conditions where stability is rewarded and instability is exposed. It is a subtle but powerful way to work in harmony with biology rather than against it. This perspective also reframes how we think about prevention and support. Instead of waiting for disease to occur and then applying aggressive treatments, understanding metabolic influence allows for proactive guidance. By maintaining internal balance and avoiding constant metabolic stress, the body naturally supports the removal of cells that cannot maintain their own integrity. Healthy cells thrive, repair efficiently, and remain resilient, while stressed or damaged cells reach the tipping point for self-destruction. Ultimately, This keynote underscores the intimate connection between biology and daily choices. The concept that lifestyle and nutrition can play a role in the fate of even the most aggressive cells is both empowering and hopeful. It transforms the way we view health from passive survival to active participation. By appreciating the power of metabolism and the fragile nature of chaotic cells, we are not just observing biology, we are learning to work with it, supporting the systems that maintain life while exposing weaknesses in those that threaten it. This approach opens a future where understanding and action align, and the body becomes an active participant in maintaining its own integrity, using the rules of life itself to guide cells toward the outcomes nature intended. What this new understanding of metabolism and cellular behavior ultimately points to is a future full of hope, one where the body itself becomes a partner in maintaining health and addressing disease. For decades, we have focused on external attacks, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and drugs aimed at destroying harmful cells from the outside. But now, the emerging science is shifting attention inward to the very mechanisms that determine whether a cell thrives, struggles, or self-destructs. By observing the inner workings of energy production, stress management, and cellular balance, researchers are discovering that we can guide cells toward natural outcomes, working with biology rather than against it. The profound idea here is that a cell's fate is not random. Every cell carries within it the tools for survival and, when necessary, the instructions for self-destruction. Cancer cells, because of their unstable and chaotic metabolism, are particularly susceptible to these internal signals. They live on the edge of energy crisis, burning fuel recklessly to grow fast and survive in conditions that would challenge normal cells. This internal imbalance is their Achilles heel. When properly understood, these weaknesses can be leveraged, not by brute force, but by creating conditions where the cell's own systems recognize that it cannot sustain itself, triggering apoptosis. This is a level of precision and sophistication in treatment that moves beyond traditional methods, aligning with the intelligence already built into the body. At the same time, this insight empowers individuals to recognize the impact of lifestyle, nutrition, and environment on their own cellular health. The body is not passive. It responds to what we eat, how we move, how we sleep, and how we manage stress. These choices influence energy pathways, mitochondrial efficiency, and metabolic resilience. Healthy cells flourish under supportive conditions, while unstable cells face the pressure that may ultimately lead to their collapse. This does not replace medical intervention, but it provides a foundational understanding of how biology, daily habits, and emerging science intersect in ways that were unimaginable just a few years ago. This approach represents a new era in the way we understand disease. It is not about fear or reaction. It is about knowledge and guidance. By observing metabolism, we are learning how to cooperate with the body's natural defenses, to support its intelligent design, and to target vulnerabilities in a precise and elegant way. The realization that internal energy pathways can determine cell survival and death reframes the entire conversation about treatment, prevention, and longevity. It is a perspective grounded in science, yet it carries profound implications for hope and empowerment. In essence, this keynote reminds us that understanding biology is not just an academic exercise. It is a path to influence outcomes, to support health, and to work in harmony with life's own intelligence. By focusing on metabolism, We are entering an era where the body's natural processes are not obstacles to overcome, but tools to engage. We are learning that the answer to complex problems may lie not in attacking the disease, but in guiding it toward the outcome that nature already intended. This insight opens the door to a future where science, lifestyle, and biology converge, offering a new level of control, hope, and understanding in the journey toward health.